We are talking today about new approaches for restoration of the Chesapeake Bay, and I'm very pleased as Governor of Virginia and Chairman of the Executive Council of the Chesapeake Bay Program to welcome you all here. The Chesapeake Bay and its citizens, at 64,000 square miles, at 17 million Americans, all who have a passion for water, the outdoors, and especially this most unique American resource. We've just had a productive and energetic lunch discussion that followed panel meetings earlier this morning to talk about the opportunities before us, even in a challenging time, to significantly accelerate the restoration of the Chesapeake Bay and the rivers and streams that feed it throughout these watershed states. Just 6 months ago, many of you joined us in Washington, and we agreed on a few very important items as we look at a path forward to bay restoration. First, we all agreed that we would no longer set a restoration end date decades out in the future that would become the responsibility of a future executive council with no creation of a sense of accountability or urgency for actually meeting those goals. Instead, we agreed at that point to work diligently to come forward with short-term 2-year milestones that would accelerate restoration, hold the Executive Council and all federal and state partners accountable, and would be meaningful to the public on a time scale that all could relate to. And today we will present to you those milestones. Second, we also agreed in December that our states would work together with our federal partners to set a new restoration end date that would flow directly from the milestones we'll discuss today. Just a year ago, predictions were that at current levels of effort, some jurisdictions would not complete their necessary actions until 2040 or later. Today, we present to you a more aggressive restoration end date to couple with the milestones we'll discuss. And third, we decided in December that we would announce and establish a process for a credible, outside, and independent evaluator to critique our efforts, to be an umpire, to say whether we're doing what we said we would do, and ultimately to provide critical feedback for that goal of bay restoration. While all the partners in the bay effort are passionate and dedicated to the cause, it is pretty difficult to assess ourselves, and that's why we felt the need for an independent evaluator. And today we will present to you how that independent evaluation process will begin and then be carried out over this time period. And lastly, we announced in December that we would move our Executive Council meetings to the spring. This wasn't just a matter of wanting to take advantage of a beautiful place and meet outdoors, but we recognize the fact that the annual council meetings in December often occurred after the budget development work had already taken place in the watershed states. And so we decided that if we move these meetings to the spring, we could actually have meaningful discussions about priorities and strategies and have them in a timely fashion so that the governors and federal partners could start to plan immediately into the next budget round what we need to do. So today is the first such spring meeting, and we hope that all will be held in locations as beautiful as this. Make no mistake, today is a turning point for the restoration of the Chesapeake Bay and rivers. A turning point with much work to be done, but a turning point nevertheless. We as a council stand before you, and we pledge to accelerate the pace of bay restoration. We're presenting to you new short-term milestones that illustrate the degree to which our restoration efforts will accelerate. While each partner has developed their own milestones, they were developed in a consistent and comprehensive manner in dialogue between all the partners so that we could sum up the results and quantify the bay-wide rate of increased restoration. And I'm pleased to tell you that today that with the new milestones that we'll announce, we will increase the bay-wide pace of restoration efforts by 77% for nitrogen and 79% for phosphorus over the previous pace. We presented these milestones in a simple, user-friendly format so that the public can easily see what level of pollution reductions we'll achieve, how the pollution reductions will be achieved, what are the available funding sources, and additional actions beyond funding that will be necessary. I will bring up Governor Malley in just a couple of minutes, and he will address the milestones in more detail. Bay cleanup deadlines in the past have been set and, as you know, missed. Today we present you a new end restoration date, no later than 2025. This is the date by which we commit to have fully implemented all the actions necessary to reduce nitrogen and phosphorus pollution to the agreed-upon level necessary for a healthy bay and rivers. 3 words are important: no later than. As new technologies evolve, our scientific understanding improves, and computer models are further refined, I'm optimistic that opportunities will arise to further shorten this end date and bring it forward. Some of the partners may be able to accelerate and fully achieve their goals prior to 2025, and I encourage all of us to look forward to ways to do so. Again, as I said earlier, the projections just a year ago indicated an end date of 2040 for a number of the states in the Bay watershed. And so by announcing no later than 2025, coupled with meaningful milestones that will push our progress forward, we believe that we are embarking on a different level of commitment to Bay restoration, one where the public and we will all hold ourselves more accountable to actually make it happen. We'll continue to assess our progress moving forward and work in tandem with the partners to make sure that we are good to our word. Now, as an executive council, we're not just a collaboration of state and local entities. We do have wonderful local government participation. Penny Gross is here and others on our local government advisory commission. State legislators, John Cosgrove, who you'll hear from later, represents the Chesapeake Bay Commission of legislators from around the watershed. But the federal government has to be a key partner in this effort. The Chesapeake Bay effort was kicked off in many ways by a presidential declaration by President Reagan. But since President Reagan, there's been no president that has taken significant action to move Chesapeake Bay efforts forward. That is changing today. As we stand here, thank you, and save the applause for the real announcement, but as we stand here in 2009, it's really hard for me to contain my enthusiasm about this particular aspect of what we'll hear. EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson will speak shortly and talk to you about a wonderful announcement in terms of President Obama's commitment to focus on the heightened roles and responsibilities of our federal agencies across Secretariat in this Bay restoration effort. And this will be the first significant presidential involvement in Bay activities in more than a generation. And the action today sets the priority for restoring the health of the Chesapeake Bay as never before, and not just as a federal priority for the Bay in and of itself, but a recognition that this Bay is a treasured landscape and that work that we can do, innovative work we can do here in the Bay, can also have a significant carry forward into work that's being done in other treasured landscapes, estuaries, bays all across this country. In addition to the President's leadership, I've had the pleasure of meeting with Administrator Jackson shortly after she took office, and I am absolutely confident that many other great things will result from her leadership on the Chesapeake Bay and across the broad portfolio of issues that the EPA is tackling. Furthermore, she's appointed, as many of you know, a senior advisor on issues relating to the Chesapeake Bay and to the Anacostia River, a most important piece of the Chesapeake Bay watershed. Chuck Fox, who is here today, is that senior advisor, and this is a position that has no parallel for any other body of water in the United States. I look forward to working closely with Lisa and Chuck during my remaining term as governor and beyond, and I know the other members of the commission feel exactly the same way. It is an exciting time for Bay Restoration Partnership. I am proud of the fact that Virginia, frankly, after a number of years of not being a major investor in Bay-wide efforts, is now an investor. We've put over $1 billion into sewage treatment plant upgrades in the last 3 years. We've put $57 million into partnering with agriculture to help them match and find ways to incentivize best management practices. We have new stormwater regulations that will go into effect by year end. We have embarked and are going to succeed in an ambitious effort to preserve 400,000 acres of open space, most of which will be in the Bay watershed that can help us deal with runoff issues. And finally, I know more because of my friendship with Governor O'Malley about crabs, menhaden, and oysters than I ever thought I would know, as I'm now 3.5 years into being governor. I will offer you one more opportunity on Virginia, then I'm going to bring my good friend Martin O'Malley up to say a few words. I promised that there would be a Virginia-specific gift to many of you. On the table to our right is the Virginia state tree, the dogwood. One of the best things that citizens can do to help water quality is plant trees. We plant, our Department of Forestry, and Carl Garrison is here, plants about 33 million trees a year in Virginia through the Department of Forestry, but we decided we wouldn't plant these last 200. We'd bring them here and let you plant them. So 200 dogwoods are there, and before you leave today, I hope you'll take one, that you'll plant it, and you'll think both about the Chesapeake Bay, but also about the natural beauty that we are all trying to preserve for future generations.